Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. Tony, scientists say a recent landslide in Greenland shook the earth for 9 days.
Tony Kornheiser, I thought it was because I trimmed my beard. You know what I mean? You know?
No, I don't know what you mean. I don't even get that.
Really?
I don't know what that means.
Don't?
What are you talking about? Because you trimmed your beard, the earth shook? What?
Yeah, I don't know.
No.
I read what's up there. How many times I said to you I'm a show monkey? If you put something up there, I'm going to read it.
All right.
I just read it.
I'm
I thought it was
gonna tell you
all right.
what it
Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. Today's episode, Kirk Cousins is struggling. The Pac-12 is back, and Booger McFarland joins us for 5 good minutes. But we begin today with tonight's Thursday night game, Buffalo at Miami. These are two teams with big offenses, but neither has gotten to the Super Bowl lately. Dolphins haven't won a playoff game since 2000. Buffalo's beaten Miami in 11 of their past 12 meetings. Wilbon, do the Dolphins have to beat the Bills for you to take them seriously as a legit power team?
Well, Tony, they got to beat them at least once this year, and they get 2 cracks at them. So they may as well, start tonight. 11 out of 12. I thought the only team that owned another division team like that right now was the Packers over my Bears. I thought that was the only one. Yeah. I didn't realize that. And, Tua, I think, is 1-6 against the Bills. So, yes, you've got to establish something in your division. It's not like you're getting beat like this by Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, which, was the first half of the century, the first, 10 years anyway of this century. So, no, the Dolphins have got to be better at this. Started tonight. And there's no reason. You got, a situation where Buffalo's big star, their superstar, has got an injured wrist. I know it's his left wrist, not his throwing hand. But still, man, you got to take advantage of some of this now. And if you don't get this one, then you've got to get the next one, or you have a really reduced chance of winning your division.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think it's just the 11 out of 12. I think it's the Josh Allen factor. He is personally 10-2 against Miami, but in those games, he's got like 33 touchdown passes, only 7 interceptions. He's rushed for 638 yards and 5 touchdowns. And I understand that it's not just against Mike McDaniel coached Dolphin teams, but he's 4-1 against him, including a playoff game. And as you mentioned, Tua is 1-6 against Buffalo. To stress what you're saying, this is the division. You cannot be taken seriously as a conference contender if you cannot do better in your own division. When I look at the AFC now, at the top I have Kansas City, and then I have Baltimore. Right now, Houston may be rising. It's possible that the Chargers with Jim Harbaugh are rising. The Steelers with a new quarterback may be rising. Is there room for Buffalo and Miami? I'm not sure. I'm not sure there's room for both of them, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure about Pittsburgh yet. I'm not sure about San Diego yet.
No, it's possible.
So it is. You're right. No, you're entirely right. But Buffalo and Miami should look at those two and say, no. And we didn't mention Cincinnati. So Buffalo and Miami should look at those other teams other than Kansas City and Baltimore and say, give me some elbow room. But that's why, Tony, I hate to start talking about how big a game is in week 2. I think this is fairly big, especially for those Thursday night dog games. That's usually what we get. The Falcons could soon face a quarterback quandary. Kirk Cousins looked lousy in last week's loss to the Steelers, showing little strength in that surgically repaired right Achilles. Atlanta agreed to pay Cousins $100 million, guaranteed, as you know. If he struggles again Monday night in Philly, Tone, could you see the Falcons turning this quickly to rookie first-round pick Michael Penix Jr.?
So they have a new coach in Atlanta, Raheem Morris. They have a new offensive coordinator in Atlanta, Zach Robinson. I don't know what their loyalty is to Kirk Cousins. I don't know if they were involved in signing Kirk Cousins or that was just the owner. I know it's $180 million overall and $100 million guaranteed, and I also know that if I'm the owner, I don't want to sit $100 million guaranteed on the bench this quickly. I would not want to do that. He's got the torn Achilles from last year. You don't know how fully healthy he is. Have the coaches reached out to try to give him a comfort level? It is said that Cousins likes to take snaps directly under center, and I guess they moved him back into a shotgun. This could be as much coaching as it is Cousins, similar to what you said last year about Russell Wilson in Denver. Kirk Cousins is 36 years old. He's been a starter, Mike, in the league for 10 years. He's a known commodity. Maybe you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Well,
Maybe
Tony,
you can't.
I looked at that. It was interesting because Kirk Cousins was lined up differently than he has been all these years, and we got to see the start of his career and a lot of it here in Washington.
In Washington.
But, Tony, he wasn't moving. He had no movement. He could not avoid anything. And maybe they put him back there because just getting from under center to a 5-step drop was too onerous for him coming off the torn Achilles.
Yeah.
Now, they should have known that. And if people actually use the preseason for what it's designed, they might have known that. But here's what you can do. You can go to Michael Penix Jr. as soon as halftime. And if he plays well, you can say, you know what? Let's just give Kirk a couple of weeks here to practice and get better, because it wasn't anything near a whole year. So let's see. Let's give him some time. He should have started on the PUP list anyway.
The next two games don't look like wins. It's at Philadelphia on Monday night and at Kansas City next Sunday night. The whole world will see what Cousins can do. If you go to 0-3, someone in that room is going to say, let's switch. We move now to college football and another conference realignment story, the Pac-12, which is down to the Pac.
Any sport on earth, and people want to see their rivalries and their teams play teams they're familiar with. They don't want to see Stanford play at Iowa and at Minnesota and at Purdue and Indiana and Northwestern. They don't. That's garbage. So, no, I keep hearing about it's the greatest college football. No, it isn't. Because you got an entire region of the country, and it is growing. Stanford play at Iowa and at Minnesota and at Purdue and Indiana and Northwestern. They don't. That's garbage. So, no, I keep hearing about it's the greatest college football. No, it isn't. Because you got an entire region of the country, and it is growing.
Two Pac-12 schools that nobody wanted. I've said this before on the show. I'll be brief about it. What happened to the Pac-12? This is the conference of Bill Walsh and John McKay and John Robinson, John Wooden, Lute Olson, and now it is a smoldering heap.
Greed happened to it.
A smoldering heap.
That's what happened.
Let's take a break. Coming up, a Bengals corner expresses doubt about Xavier Worthy, and we will ask Booger McFarland about that.
Just substitute USC for those Stanford opponents. We'll also ask him why T.J. Watt and Michael Parsons stay so good, even his defensive scheme, to stop him.
I'll tell you this, Mike, with the new Pac-12, if they get into the playoff and they go 0-3 in the first 3 years, relegate them. Relegate them. Because these schools don't deserve an automatic. They don't. Let's get back into football with our great friend, ESPN, NFL, and college football analyst Booger McFarland, wearing a shirt from Old Head in Ireland, right on the peninsula, into the ocean. Sweet.
Very nice.
Just sweet. Let's start with this. The Bengals face the Chiefs on Sunday. Today, Bengals cornerback Cam Taylor-Britt said of Chiefs rookie speedster Xavier Worthy, this is a quote, what he has. He goes, quote, speed, that's about it. He can run straight. He can't do much else, unquote. What a bomber quote that is. Is this how you see it? And if you were a teammate of Mr. Taylor-Britt's, how would you react to him actually saying this?
Well, first of all, that's not how I see it. That's like saying LeBron James is tall and all he can do is dunk. No, that's not the case. We know he is a very skillful player. And when you look at Xavier Worthy, going back to his days at Texas, yes, he has the 4.21 speed. He can get vertical and take the top off the defense. But let's think about the first touch he got in the NFL. He took an end around and scored. So that tells you right there that that's all he can do. And if I was a teammate of young Cam Taylor-Britt, I'd be like, listen, buddy, if I were you, I would be quiet until you have to deal with this 4.21 speed. But that's not the day and age we live in, guys. You know that. It's social media. I got to give the clicks. I got to give things out. But he should be ready to cover that 4.21 speed.
Ooh, you better be ready to back that up. Booger, I'm so happy that defenses are ahead of offenses, at least after a week. It makes me very happy. I'm sure it makes you happy too. And I'm wondering if you are seeing the tangible things, tangible reasons that defenses are ahead. The passing is down because defenses have adjusted. What are you seeing when you look at this dynamic?
Well, there are a couple of adjustments. I think defensive coordinators now are starting to keep the safeties back, which keeps the play in front of you and force the quarterback to be accurate underneath. And I think also, let's just be honest, the quarterback play in week 1 was terrible. If you just look at passing yards overall, they were down. And I think that had a lot to do with guys coming out and not playing in the preseason. You look at a guy like Kirk Cousins, very rusty. Deshaun Watson looked like a shell of his former self. Those are veteran quarterbacks that you expect to show up and play in regular season form. And quite frankly, they did not. And I think offenses will slowly get their rhythm over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, defense ruled the nest week 1. And I think as long as these defensive coordinators don't get frisky and start to blitz, passing yards are going to stay down because they're keeping all the coverage back and keeping the plays in front of them.
I want to stay with defense for a second and ask you specifically about T.J. Watt and Micah Parsons, who are all over the place for their teams in week 1. And, Booger, are they just unblockable, or are there adjustments to be made now that you expect to see? Because if people don't start getting the handle on them, they're going to wreck some offenses.
You know what, Mike? Think about this. We've seen great players in every sport, whether it's a great hitter, whether it's a great shooter in the NBA. If you're a great player, there's a reason you're great. You can get your shot. You can get your play anytime you want. And when you look at Parsons and you look at Watt, regardless of the attention you give them, at some point in the game, you're going to give them an open look. Okay, when they get that open look, they're going to take it. Regardless of how you run behind Steph Curry, regardless of what you do, at some point, he's going to get an open look, and the great players take advantage of the opportunities. You may hold them down for 1, 2, maybe even 3 quarters, but at some point, Micah Parsons and T.J. Watt are going to take the game over, and it's tough to scheme against them because you have defensive coordinators that can move them around, especially in Dallas now when you look at Mike Zimmer, the new coordinator. They can move Micah Parsons around off the edge or at linebacker, and so it's going to be really tough. Regardless of how you scheme those two guys, they're going to make their plays because they're just great players.
We will get you out of here on this, and it is a college question. Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders, he could be, people say, the number 1 pick in the draft, but he's playing behind a really bad offensive line. If you're Deion, you're his dad, at what point do you try to save your son for something in the future?
I think you have to take a look at when the season is on the line. So as long as Colorado is in bowl contention, I think you're going to trust Shedeur out there as long as he's healthy. If it gets toward the end of the season and there's 2 or 3 games left and there's really no mathematical way that Colorado can get to a bowl, because let's face it, Deion needs to get this team to a bowl this year. I don't know if he can, but as long as he's getting close to bowl eligibility, he's going to have to play his son. But the moment that goes away and there's a couple games left, he's got to go into dad mode. He's got to step away from coach mode and say, okay, I'm going to go into dad mode, and does it matter to my son to go out and play these last 2 games, or should I allow him to kind of sit out and get ready for the NFL draft? I think dad prime and coach prime have to have a conversation at that point.
Well said. Thank you so much,
Appreciate
Booger,
it,
as
Booger.
always.
Thank you.
Anytime, guys.
Let's take one last break. Still to come, is it Bowden Francis or Bowden Francis of the Blue Jays? Look for a pronunciation there. Loses a no-no in the 9th again.
Okay, Asia Wilson didn't get 40 as I predicted, but she set a new WNBA record in a win over the Fever. Fever been on a roll, not once they got a hold of Asia Wilson.
I'm told it's Bowden.
Like
I want to make
college.
sure of that. Bowden, like in
Right,
Bobby
like
Bowden.
the college.
Yeah, Bowden. Happy time, people. Happy 84th birthday, Mickey Lolich. History lesson, kids. In 1968, pitchers ruled the major leagues. The 2 best pitchers were Bob Gibson of the Cardinals, who had a remarkable 1.12 ERA, and Denny McClain of the Tigers, who had a remarkable 31 wins. Neither of those numbers has been approached since because baseball lowered the mound after that season to prevent it. But at the end of the season, the star pitcher was Mickey Lolich. Lolich outshone Gibson and McClain in the World Series, where he won 3 games over the Cardinals, including Game 7 over Gibson. Lolich threw 3 complete games, 27 innings with a 1.67 ERA. He won Game 7 on 2 days rest.
Tony, I know all the other sports make persuasive cases that they are better now than they were 30, 40, 60, 70 years ago. I don't want to hear that from baseball because it doesn't have the component we're talking about now with a guy like Lolich, who a couple of years later went 25-14 with 29 complete games, and he's the number 2 guy on your staff after Denny McClain. Come on now. Baseball doesn't have anything like that. It's not better.
Happy anniversary, Tony Gonzalez. On this day 14 years ago, while playing for the Falcons, Gonzalez caught 2 passes against the Steelers to become the first tight end in NFL history to reach 1,000 career receptions and the 7th receiver overall to do it. Only one other tight end has gone over 1,000 catches, Jason Witten, with 1,228. That's 97 behind Gonzalez. Antonio Gates is 3rd all-time with 955 receptions. The active leader is Travis Kelce with 910. At 35, Kelce seems like a reasonable bet to break 1,000. Rob Gronkowski, who I think is the best tight end ever, had 621 catches.
Yeah, see, it's not going to be just catches for you or me. Here I go being old man again. If I had to take a tight end out of all the tight ends that have played and my life was on the line and I'm playing a game tonight, I'm taking Ozzie Newsome. I'm just saying. And there are a lot of great tight ends out there. And wow, this seems to be the age of the great tight end right now.
Yes.
Still going to Ozzie. Ozzie, out the
Agree
pen.
with that.
Bringing him out the pen.
Happy trails to another no-hitter for Bowden Francis. The Blue Jays starter took a no-hitter into the 9th for the 2nd time in 4 starts. And just like last time, he lost it by surrendering a home run to start the 9th. This time to Francisco Lindor of the Mets. It was one of 6 runs the Mets scored in the frame to win the game. Wilbon, you hate when managers let pitch counts get in the way of potential history. But Francis was at 111 pitches, and he said, quote, "With that many pitches, I felt like I had to empty the tank with heaters and let him put the ball in play," unquote.
This whole thing, what you just talked about, was very noteworthy. But Tony, this Frankie Lindor for MVP thing, it seems to be gathering momentum. I know Shohei goes out there and seems to hit a home run every night. Hit one against my Cubs last night. He's going to get the 50-50. But Tony, a guy plays elite defense at the level of Lindor, and his team is in it, and he's leading his team in it, and they've been about the best team for the last 80 games, about the best record in that time. We may have to revisit that. I know you don't want to.
I'm not
but we
revisiting.
may have to revisit.
I'm not.
All right.
I'm not.
I'm willing to at least
Ohtani.
think about it.
I'm not. We'd also like to note the passing of Hall of Fame Lions linebacker Joe Schmidt at the age of 92. Schmidt led the Lions to 2 titles. He was All-Pro 8 times. He made 10 consecutive Pro Bowls. He also coached the Lions for 5 seasons. Wilbon, you love middle linebackers, and Schmidt was one of the best.
Yes. Yes, Tony, he was one of the best at a time where middle linebackers were seemingly the most important people. It wasn't edge rusher. It was middle linebackers like Schmidt. And those are the last 2 championships Detroit won. He was hoping that he would live long enough to maybe see the Lions get into a Super Bowl, and it didn't happen.
One correction, the Falcons' next 2 games are at the Eagles and then home for the Chiefs, not at the Chiefs. That's my bad. Let's go to the big finish if we could.
Let's do it.
Asia Wilson had 27 points in a win over the Fever to break the WNBA single-season scoring record. Do you find that significant?
No. The fact that she's the best player in the league and the MVP, that's significant. Shohei Ohtani, speaking of, now has a career high in home runs, 47 as I just mentioned. Is that a big deal?
Not necessarily just the 47, but if he goes 50-50 like you said he would, that is an enormous deal, and he's the unanimous MVP, 50-50.
Not unanimous.
James Paxton told the Baseball Isn't Boring podcast that he thinks he'll retire after the season. Does that make sense to you?
Tony, 35 years old with a lot of injuries, including right now with a calf. If he wants to go, if he said enough, I get it. The Phillies swept the Rays and are a season high 30 games over 500. You love the Phillies, go ahead.
I do. They're really good. The best 1 through 9 order in baseball. Last one, Solheim Cup starts tomorrow. He did an event about it last night. Who's going to win it?
Yeah, Tony. I think the United States, coming off a couple of losses in the tie, is going to win. And you know I'm rooting for my faves. Nelly Korda, Lexi Thompson, Andrew Lee. I'm just saying, I might go out there to watch. Might you?
Expect you. I expect you to go to RTJ.
Okay.
We've played it a number of times. Of course you go. We're out of time. We'll try and do better the next time. I'm Tony Kornheiser.
I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, Knucklehead. You can get the PTI podcast on the ESPN app or Apple Podcast. Shout out to everybody who's here for the Soul Hunt. That is really good. Here's sports.
You're going to get a limousine out there?